All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to something that's been missing for a long time. Hold, please. So sorry about that. So, anyone that's been watching the channel recently, or rather, not watching it, has probably realized I ain't been here a whole lot. So I wanted to give a little bit of an update and then quite literally tell a story. Because since ZUthon, really, um, my anxiety has been on overdrive. My depression has gotten really, really bad. For the past, I want to say, 2-ish weeks, maybe a little bit more than that. I don't get out of bed for more than a couple hours. Uh, so that obviously has affected my ability to make videos. Goal is that changes starting next week. I'm hoping the plan is right now. Next week I go back to my normal Monday Wednesday schedule for videos. I have been in a very bad place recently. So I still have been keeping up with my Wednesday night D&D games and Realms of the Wild, which is the open legend RPG I run every other Saturday for Zelda Universe. Mostly because that affects other people, and when I cancel those, it makes my anxiety get even worse, and my depression to get even worse. So that was kind of a rock and a hard place. My players are lovely, wonderful people, and they obviously always, anytime I have had to cancel, they're always very polite and go, you take care of you first. You're more important than the game and things like that. But my brain doesn't understand that. So that's why it just seems like I've been neglecting the channel. I haven't. I have had multiple videos I've wanted to film for a while now. I just haven't been able to turn on the camera other than effectively these obligations that I have. I am in a remarkably bad place right now mentally. So I'm hoping that just by talking and kind of getting myself comfortable being on camera like this again, this will help me to get back to how the things are. So for all you new subscribers, because I am still getting new subscribers, thank you for showing up. I promise this is not what we normally have here. Normally I talk about D&D stuff, and every so often I will also talk about business stuff. Because D&D is RPGs in general, but D&D specifically is kind of my life now, since I'm disabled and can't work. And business used to be my life. I have a degree in it. So, yes. So, that's the big update. If that's all you're here for, thanks for coming. Now it's story time. So, I have been thinking a lot about my former life as an actor. And I discovered something kind of weird. Probably about the time that I started going back to school, I think in like 2013, 2014, around that at the time. I decided to go back to college to get a business degree because I'd been working in retail. I'd been working in retail management for like 6 years at that point, and I could not get a job in retail management other than at the company that promoted me up to a manager. And I hated the company I was working for at the time for various reasons. The company itself was fine. The people I was working with I didn't like. And I just kept getting told time and time again, well, we need someone with management experience. I'm like, I have management experience. What do you think manager means on my resume? Well, we're looking for someone with more knowledge than you have. Oh, so you want someone with a degree? Preferably. So I went back. And I had not been in academia at that point in like, I don't know, half a decade. Like, I dropped out of college after 2 years because I hated school in general. Like, I hated school. Um, I hated elementary school. I hated middle school. I hated high school. Aside from a few things like acting, I really, really enjoyed. Music, I really enjoyed. But that was such a small part of school all the way up until Cook College. Um, and I was an absolute bully magnet my entire little life. It wasn't until, I think it wasn't until college really, when, or partway through high school, when I learned how to carry myself differently. I used to walk around slumped, and I had this big, huge duffel bag that I used as a backpack, and so I'd walk around like this. And for those of you who don't know, bullies are predators, and what I mean by that is they look for a weak target. They're not going to bully everybody because that doesn't give them what they want. And I looked, despite the fact that I was 6'1" in, like I was 6 foot in like seventh grade. Um, and by the time I got to high school, I was like 6'1". I was shaving my freshman year of high school, and I had an ugly, like, I got it here and then my neck and here, and I got nothing on my face. I can grow a slightly better beard now than I could then. Couldn't grow a mustache. So I just looked ugly. Um, and so yeah, I was a bully magnet, and so I hated school and everything like that. And so um, when I went back to school, again, I was not looking forward to it, but my sister had gone to the same college, and it was an online college, and it allowed you to kind of go at your own pace. Like my sister, not only got her undergrad, she got her master's there, and she got her master's in 6 months. Because uh, despite the fact that she's my sister, and I will always take every opportunity I can to argue and fight with her because we're siblings and that's how we grew up. She's really smart. Um, and so it did not surprise me in any way, shape, or form that she got her master's degree in 6 months. So anyway, that really attracted me to the school. Um, but then I finally found the school, and I knew I could get the loans and everything I needed to be able to go there. So I applied this school, and I'm like, oh, I'll be able to get in next month because this school is weird in that it doesn't do semesters. It does 6 month long terms, and your term starts whatever month you start on. Or at least that's how I understood it then. So I'm like, oh, I can start here, and it'll be perfect and fine. And I had to go through effectively an audition process. I had to apply for the school, and I'm like, okay, it's an online school, so it's not like you have limited class size. Um, and I'm going to be paying you thousands of dollars. Are you really telling me I have to convince you to let me pay you 1,000, not 1,000, tens of thousands of dollars? Yep, I did. And I thought it was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard of. And so I had to write an essay, which I'm a good essay writer. So it wasn't like any of this was hard, but it just seemed so stupid. Like I had to compete to get this spot in a school with no upper limit to how many students they could handle just so I could pay them. And in high school, it made perfect sense that I had to apply to colleges and had to kind of prove to them that I was worth allowing to go there, because that's how all of high school is, and that's how all of school is you're constantly having to prove that you are good enough to exist, and that you deserve to get the education that they have been giving you and all these things. And you are just constantly told repeatedly over and over and over again, we don't think you're good enough, prove it. And so that mindset made perfect sense in high school. I got to college, and I was I was a theater major with a minor in music, which are two more fields that for the rest of your life while you're in this field, you will constantly have to prove that you are worth giving a job to. You will constantly be auditioning, you will constantly be re-auditioning, and it's just how the thing. So that made perfect sense. Well, after I dropped out and I tried to become a professional actor, and it technically worked because I got paid to act once, the jobs weren't coming in. So I got into retail, where again I had to prove I was worth giving a job to, which again just felt real weird because it was the easiest job ever. But sure, all right, that's what I'll do. And then not only did I get good at my job, I got really good at my job. And then I started working. Not only that, but in my off time, I got to do a little bit of work with a community theater group that liked me. And I was a really, really good actor. I know a lot of people will say that. And you can only take my word for it because there really are no archival records of my acting ability. But I was good. I was really, really good. And this company knew that. This community theater knew that. And I liked them and they liked me. And so... And then I started developing other business relationships with other people. And they stopped having me prove that I knew what I was doing. Like I worked for another company that will remain nameless, but I adore them. And am really, really upset that I wasn't able to continue working for that company because it's an amazing, wonderful company that actually helps the community. But that's another story. And when I got there, I didn't have to prove myself. Like I still had an interview, but the interview was literally, and I think I've talked about this in another video. I walked in and I told the regional manager that happened to have his office in this particular store. I told the regional manager how this store worked, having never worked a day in it. And I wasn't trying to prove myself. I was just talking like I would at my other job to another manager. I just go, oh, this, and this. Like that was something that you would do with other managers, not, to one-up them or anything, but just to kind of talk about how the day was going. It's like, oh, yeah, your AT's this, and it was just talking shop. And so that's what I did with this guy. And he, not only did he give me this job, he was very, very happy to give me this job because he was actually the guy that hired me at my other job. And so he was absolutely thrilled. And so a few years pass. I get an email from someone at the community theater group that I had worked with previously. And I hadn't been able to do a bunch of their shows because I was just too busy being a manager. But they shoot me an email and go, hey, we're doing The Wizard of Oz. I'm like, oh, it's such a great show. My high school did it when I was in high school. I wasn't able to do it because of some drama that happened in the high school. But yeah, it's a great show. Why? What do you need? And they're like, well, we're just really having a hard time finding someone to play the wizard. We're wondering if you'd be willing to come and audition. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'd love to. I love working with you guys. The wizard's a smaller part, so I'm pretty sure I'll be able to get the time off of work for it. Yeah, I'd love to. And this is the first time I've ever been asked to audition for a part. I'd worked with a couple different community theater groups, and I'd done collegiate theater, and I'd done high school stuff, and I'd done church stuff. I'd never had anyone approach me for a role. It had always been, hey, here are the auditions. If you want in, you have to audition. So I was feeling really good about myself. And I also, I don't want to say I didn't do the prep work I normally would, because part of the audition process is there's a massive amount of prep, especially for theater, that you have to do. If it's possible, you should read the show that you're auditioning for front to back. Like read the entire thing. the character that you're auditioning for, you should know backwards, forwards, and upside down. To the point where a really common question in theater auditions is, well, what do you think of this character? What do you think, you know? And this is before you've gotten the part, before you've been able to personalize the character and make it your own. You're already supposed to be interpreting them. In addition to that, you also have to prepare a bunch of audition pieces, and any audition piece, you have to know the entire show. I had an audition piece I used to do from a show called Breeze Block Park, which is a brilliantly funny show. And the audition, the basic premise of the show is it's a lower class English family where in this particular time period, I can't remember the time period it was set in, but it was years ago. Classism is still kind of a thing in England, and a lot of classism is based on how you speak. It's one of the reasons why Michael Caine is kind of a bizarre anomaly in British actors, because he never gave up his low-class Cockney accent. Generally, it's understood if you want to be an actor, you're not allowed to have a low-quality accent unless the only roles you want to play are low-class bums. So anyway, so it's a lower-class family that's always trying to kind of put on airs and kind of act that they're better than they are. And so this particular monologue is, I can't even remember the character's name anymore, but he's trying to show just how superior he is to another character that mentioned that they're going to go see a show. And he goes, "Oh, theatre, you're talking about theatre? I've been to one of those once. Hey, John, what was the name of that play? The one I took you and your mother to when it was raining out? Wait and forgot it. That was it." For those of you who don't know, there's a very famous Theatre of the Absurd play called Waiting for Godot, but it's spelled Godot. So it was super hilarious. And I love the monologue, but I had to know that entire script front to back, and I don't remember most of it. My favorite scene from the show is they're getting presents. I think it's around Christmas or some holiday, and they get presents, and one of the women gets basically a joke gift, which is a vibrator, and she doesn't know what to do with it. And they keep trying to say, well, it's a thingy, and they just keep calling it a thing or a thingy, referencing another word, another meaning of the word thing, and she's just not getting it. And so eventually one of them just goes, "It's for stirring your drinks." And so for the rest of the scene, she's making mixed drinks. She's like, "Oh, let me stir it for you." Zzz. It's a really funny scene. It's absolutely hilarious. So anyway, I go into this audition. And like I said, it's not that I didn't do my prep work or anything like that. I did, because I knew the show already really, really well. So it wasn't like I didn't know the part or anything. I'm very familiar with the Wizard and stuff like that. But I had been asked to audition, so they already knew I was a good actor. And everyone except for the director. The director is the only person I'd never met before at the company. Everyone else at the company I knew really well. And so I come in for my audition, and they're like, "Jody, can we have Jody next?" That's me. And so I get on stage, and the scene that they had me read, I still remember one of the lines from the scene because it's such a beautiful line. But it's effectively the scene where Dorothy is effectively confronting the Wizard. After she finds out that everything he's been doing has been all smoke and mirrors and stuff like that. And so before I start the scene, and this is something that anyone that auditions regularly will understand, auditioning is a poker game. And what I mean by that is you have to come in and you effectively have to bluff your way into going that I know exactly what you're thinking, and I'm going to give you the exact thing that you want without you telling me. I can see, I can read you, and I know exactly what cards you have hidden there. And so I'm going to do my entire performance based on what you know because I already know what you want. It's kind of how auditioning works. And it's one of the hardest things for a lot of actors to learn is you can have the absolute best audition in the world. You can have a perfect audition and not get the part. And you did absolutely nothing wrong. You did all your prep work. Your monologue was perfect. You took all the direction you were given in the audition the exact way you were supposed to. You had a perfect audition, but you didn't get the part. And it has nothing to do with you. Rejection is a part of being an actor. One of the things my advisor, the first time I went to college, told us, he's like, he was a working actor before he got into academia. He was, and I think he was again after he got out. But he was a working actor. And he said, if I auditioned for 50 jobs in a year, and I got 2, that was a really good year. You're always going to be auditioning for significantly more parts than you ever get. And you just have to kind of accept that most of the time you're not going to know why you didn't get the part. Because sometimes the reason you didn't get the part is, well, your name is Janet, and the casting director's ex-wife was named Janet. And so just the name gave them a bad taste. And there's nothing you can do about it. But that's not fair. Well, welcome to the world. That's how it works. Or it could just be, you, for this particular audition, you had brown hair, and in their mind, the character was a blonde. Or for this particular audition, you had short hair, and they thought the character should have long hair. Or you had long hair, and they thought they should have short hair. Or your nose was too big, or your voice was too low, or your voice was too high, or you put the emphasis in the wrong spot of the sentence, and they thought the line should be delivered differently in their head. None of these you could have known. None of these you could have changed. I mean, yeah, you can change your haircut, but if you get a haircut for every audition you do, you're going to be bald within 2 weeks. So the audition environment is very much that I have to prove that I'm good enough to get the part. I have to prove to you that I am worthy of being called an actor, and I'm not just some amateur that walked in off the street. And that's the environment of auditions. And it's very cutthroat, and it's not a nice place, but it can be a lot of fun, especially if you can get to the point where you can do auditions and you don't take them personally. The way that I was taught you have to approach an audition is a way, is an opportunity to improve yourself, to improve your acting ability, because it's a very, very different kind of acting than you will get on stage, than you will get on a TV set, on a movie set, in a commercial. They're all very, very different, and audition acting is a very, very different kind of acting. And so the way I was taught in college to approach auditions is an audition has nothing to do with a director, with anything like that. An audition is an opportunity for you to show yourself how much you've grown as an actor, and for you to improve as an actor. Every role you take, whether or not you even get the role, every role you research and you create a character for a monologue or whatever, every single time you do that, you become a better actor. So if you can get to the point, which is unbelievably hard, I don't think I ever got to that point except for this one time that I'll talk about in just a second here. But if you can get to the point where auditions are not about, am I worth being an actor? And they turn into, oh good, another chance for me to grow, and another chance for me to do something different and interact with new people. If you can get to that point, auditioning is fine. You want to be acting, but auditioning is what you do. That was the other thing I learned in college. Actors do not act for a living, they audition for a living. Acting is what they do between auditions. It's dumb, but that's how it works. Every single role you get has an expiration date. Every single one of them. So you'll always be auditioning. So go back to this thing. Hey, Jody, we want you to read. So I get up on stage. I already know the script pretty well because, again, so I look it over real quick, and I have a scene partner in this because I think they'd already cast Dorothy. So they have her on stage already, and I come up. And before we start, I go, hey, do you mind if I ask you a few questions? And the director, completely perplexed, goes, sure. I said, did you have a character voice or anything that you were thinking about for this character? Well, why don't you make that decision? I go, okay, I can do that. And I think I asked a couple other questions, just really kind of nonchalant, but I broke the rules. Again, the rules are the actor shows up, they do not interact with the director or the casting agent or anything like that. They show up, and then they have to prove that they can read your mind and give you the performance that you want. In all actuality, the actual justification of it is they want to see how you can act so that they know what to work with. It's a lousy description. I mean, it's a lie 90% of the time. It's just an easy way to weed out bad actors. But I broke the rules. And he seemed really, really uncomfortable about it, and I didn't. I didn't care. Normally, if you're in an audition and the casting director starts to look agitated or anything, you fucked up. You need to fix it now. And I didn't. I was very calm. At that point, the theater was my safe space. When I stepped on stage, I felt in control because I was really good at it. And I knew what to do, and I understood the place. Like, I just felt right there. And so I go, okay. So we start doing the scene, and I put on a character voice because I'm playing someone that's like 40 years older than I am. Because at that point, I was in my mid-20s. And I still remember this line because it's such a great line, and I think it was the best part of that performance for me. And the line before it is Dorothy is the wizard is kind of explaining, well, I did all this and I didn't mean to do all this, but they just kept saying, and that's the whole thing, is he's kind of going, well, I did this and I did this, and she goes, you're a bad man. And at least the way I did it, I've seen other actors do it different ways, but the way that I did it was not, because the line itself is, no, I'm a very good man, just a bad wizard. That's what the line is. And there's a lot of different ways you can read it. But the way that I read it was literally this. You're a bad man. He goes, no, I'm a very good man, just a very bad wizard. And just that delivery of, no, I'm a good person. I'm just really bad at my job. For me, that was the character of the wizard. Was this person that he was doing everything he could to do good. And he'd been put into this fantastical situation that didn't make sense. And because of just things that had happened, he had been put in this position he didn't deserve to be in. He wasn't good at it, but he was trying to do his best with what he had. And that was how I viewed the wizard. He wasn't a bad person or anything like that. He was just a bad wizard. He was bad at his job, but he was trying to do good. And so I do that, and the whole theater at that point kind of stops because the line delivery just worked in the scene. And the line went on, and I don't remember the rest of the line, but it's a really poignant scene. But just that delivery of, no, I'm a very good person, just a very bad wizard. Just that delivery. It stopped Dorothy because no one had done the line that way thus far. And there'd been people that had read a kind of, no, I'm a good person, just a bad wizard. And they let the wizard take it personally. And mine didn't. I just said, no, I'm a very good person. I know the subtext being, I know you wouldn't come to that conclusion based on what I've done, but No, I've done everything trying to do good. I'm just not very good at being a wizard. Is all. And that was a whole character, and it's a fun character. So that issue finishes, and again I break the rules. I go, "Is that good? Did you want me to try a different way?" And again, I can see the director's getting a little antsy because I found this out later. The director himself was kind of a pompous ass, and I think the reason he got so antsy is theater directors in general, um, at least the ones that I've worked with, have power trips. They do. They're like, I am the director. I control all that happens. The funny part about it is, um, in the kind of three main versions of acting, the ones that most people think about, you have theater, you have film, and you have television. And each one has a different emphasis on who really gets to shine through a performance. Um, on stage, stage is an actor's playground because theater is live. Once the curtain goes up, the director can't do anything. They cannot stop the show. They cannot give you more directions. You are completely in control. The actor is the one that controls everything on stage. If you go to film, the director actually is the one that controls everything because the director can just keep going, okay, another take, okay, another take, okay, another take, and they will force you to do the lines over and over again until they get it. And even if you won't give them the read that they want, when it is edited, the director is generally a part of the editing process in some way, shape, or form. And so when they edit it, they can cut that scene out completely if you didn't give them the control they want. So directing film, really the director is the final say. For a television show, it's actually the producers that have the final say in everything. Producers are the lifeblood, and showrunners are the lifeblood of television. They are the ones that have ultimate control over everything. So the reason I think this guy didn't like me, and I didn't get the part, by the way. I think the reason that this guy didn't like me was because I was effectively challenging his authority. Because again, what's supposed to happen is I'm supposed to beg him for this role, and like, I promise I'll do it exactly the way you tell me to do it. And I wasn't doing that. I got on stage. I asked him what he wanted because that's what we're here for. The director's vision is what is supposed to go on stage. Yes, the actors have control once curtain goes up, but up until that point, it is the director's show. So instead of this pussyfooting around of, well, I'm going to pretend that I know what you want. You're going to pretend that you don't know what you want. And we're both going to pretend that this is a completely spontaneous performance and it was just amazing. No, I put a shit ton of work into this. At that point, I'd been acting for over a decade. I had been working really, really, really hard to learn and focus and hone my craft. And I was just done after being in a situation where I was treated like I actually knew what I was talking about, and after experiencing what it's like to be able to just go, hey, this is what I think, and they go, okay, instead of me having to go, this is what I think, and the reason you should trust me is this, and these are the things that I've done, and these are the things that I've done, and I've done all this research. I had gotten to a point professionally where I could just go, you know what, I don't think this will work. And people would listen to me. They wouldn't just take my word for it. But I would go, you know, my experience, this is not a good idea. And they might have to go, well, why not? Or they might ask me, well, why not? And I'd explain myself, but it wasn't like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. It'd always be, you know, when people didn't go with my ideas, they go, you know what? That makes sense, but this is the route that I want to try. And it was just this kind of mutual respect that would go, okay, if this is the route that you want to try, then we'll go this way. It's your store. I put in my input and we did it. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think that actually happened at that particular job. Like every single time I said, you know what, I really don't think this is a great idea. I explained myself like 2 or 3 times, and from that point on, it was just like, okay, well, what do you think is a good idea? And I go, well, I think, why don't we try this, this, and this? And as long as it made sense, the guy would go, yeah, sure, let's do that. So I'd gotten very used to people just kind of believing me when I said things, and not having to justify my existence over and over and over again. And so the entire reason why I did this is like I can do any accent you want. I can put my voice real high. I can put my voice real low. Um, I can make it gravelly. I can make it smooth. There are about 100 different choices I can make for this character. I understand the choices tell you something about me as an actor. Yeah, I get that. But I've worked with this group before. They all know me as an actor. They know what I can do. You're not going to find out any more from my choices in this than you probably already know when one of the people working on the show approached me to audition for this role. So I got tired of this little poker game of, well, you don't show me your cards and I'm not going to show you mine, and we just have to pretend until you finally call my bluff and we put all our cards on the table. It just wasn't fun for me. And so I flat out, do you have a character voice in mind? Did you have an idea of what you wanted him to be? Did you want him to be older? Did you want to be a little younger? Well, what are your thoughts on this character? He didn't like that. He's like, well, you're supposed to tell me what my thoughts are. I don't know your thoughts. I really couldn't care less. So I did the audition. I got off. I think I was one of the last auditions that day. So I left. I think I left immediately after my audition. Like, I didn't even stay around to listen to other people's auditions, because I think there was like one or two left. But I said my piece and I'd done my thing, and it wasn't really going to benefit me to watch any other actors do the read. So I left, and as I was leaving, I met up with one of the people from the community theater that because again, we were friends. We just went outside while the auditions, because they didn't have to be in there. So we just went outside and we had a little talk. He said, dude, that was amazing. I said, thanks. I really appreciate that. It's a really fun character. It's a really interesting character. I hope I get the part. It's like, there's no way you're not getting the part. You had the best read of anyone that has walked in these doors. If you don't get the part, something's wrong. Fun fact, I didn't get the part. And it was actually the last time I got to work with the company. Which sucks, but they're a great company. They now do children's theater and stuff like that, which is cool. But not something that I can be involved in, especially since I can't leave my room. But it got me. I've been thinking about that a lot recently. Just with everything happening in my life and all the stuff, is this idea of, well, you have to constantly prove that you are worth existing, is everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. If I want to have an opinion on economics, something real simple, well, actually remarkably complex, but it's something that everybody has to deal with in one way, shape, or another. So if I want to have an opinion on the economy, I have to prove that I am worthy of existing in a space where the economy is spoken about. And I have a degree in business. My official degree is Bachelor of Science Business Marketing Management, which is effectively a dual degree. It is half marketing degree, half project management. And as part of that degree, I learned everything. I learned some business law. I learned a crap ton of economics. I learned project management. I learned marketing. I learned the history of marketing, which is really, really fascinating. I learned some psychology, specifically psychology of motivation and manipulation. And I did some of my own study in things like deception detection and other things like that. So I'm a remarkably intelligent person, and remarkably well studied. But I really hate that this is how everything goes. And I really hate that this is how everyone just expects the world to work. And I've been thinking about it specifically in the idea of job interviews, which is another thing I can't do anymore. But a job interview is an audition. It's an audition for a non-acting role. And it has the same thing. You have to pretend that you know what they're looking for, and they have to pretend that they don't know what they're looking for. And this is, I actually was trained to interview. I did staffing at, I believe, every management position I've ever had. I've been part of the staffing team. Staffing was what I did. Probably because of my background in theater, I'm really good at auditions and things like that, and so I understand the process. There's a lot of things you can take from audition and use in interviewing. It's one of the reasons I used to interview so well. And one of the jobs I had, the last job I had, remarkably enough, was for a company that is defunct now, but I still won't name them. I will say they were a movie rental company. I worked in a rental store. And people are going to go, how old are you? This was in 2013, 2014, somewhere around there. 2014, 2015, around there. I can't remember specifically, but this was less than a decade ago, folks. And if anyone was thinking, oh, you were in the last one. No, this company was printing money. Like, they were just making money hand over foot at this point. I found out later it's because they were also doing some shady things, which is one of the reasons why they tried to fire me. And I eventually had to end up quitting. It's another whole long story. Department of Labor is fun. Yeah, they had a different way that they did their interviews. And the way that they told you to do their interviews was massively, massively stupid. Like, they had this little card that you were supposed to memorize, and you were supposed to have a conversation with your interviewee. Not like a traditional interview, which is basically, tell me about a time that you provided over-the-top customer service. This is an actual interview question that I had to ask at almost every interview I ever did. There was like 6 or 7 of them that show up over and over and over again. And I know the reasons why they ask all these questions. And again, it's that thing of, I'm going to try and trick you to give me the information I want, and you're going to try and trick me to give you the information you want. And it's a dumb thing. But the interview process at this place was you'd sit down and you just have a conversation with them. And they did have you ask really, really dumb questions, like, tell me about your family life. By the way, if you're ever conducting an interview, never ask about their family life. That gets you EEOC complaints. If you don't know what EEOC, Equal Opportunity Employment Commission, that gets you discrimination lawsuits. Because as soon as you start things, asking questions that could identify them as part of a protected class, if you do not give them the job, they can claim, well, the reason they didn't give me the job is because I'm part of this protected class. They didn't give me a job because I am a parent. You're not allowed to do that. It is illegal. Or they didn't give me a job because I am a lesbian, and they found out that my significant other is the same gender as I am. Things like this. It's a remarkably stupid thing to ask. And again, this company was printing money because renting videos prints money. Like, it was an ungodly profitable business when you're not stupid. But they had the dumbest interview process ever, and it was written by morons that thought that they knew better. But the idea of an interview that is much more of a conversation than it is, I'm going to try and trick you and you try and trick me, and whoever tricks the other one better gets the job. I really like that. And I think that's how interviews should be run. Now, that does run into other problems. Again, as someone that was trained in staffing, there are certain topics you're not allowed to talk about. And if you're just having a pleasant conversation, those topics can come up. And knowing how to deal with them in a very specific way is not something that you can teach absolutely everybody. So the whole you trick me, I trick you thing is there for a reason, but it's a dumb reason. And it effectively it undervalues the skills required to interview and staff effectively. By using pre-printing questionnaires and things like that, they think that they can effectively outsource interviewing to any dude that can read. And it doesn't work that way. And that's why one of the biggest issues that a lot of struggling companies have is high turnover rate, because they don't understand how to interview correctly. But yeah, if I am ever able to get into the workforce again, which is at this particular point in time, according to the U.S. government, I'm 100% permanently and totally disabled. I will never be able to work again. And based on my own experiences, I don't see that changing anytime soon. Like, I am so messed up, and I am so unable to handle even minor things that and when I worked retail, I would work 16-hour days for a month straight. I remember having to go to my doctor because I was having problems with, I think it was problems with my back, actually. And sitting down with my doctor and going, I need something, doc. I need to see a specialist or something, because I'm having a really hard time doing my job. He goes, oh, well, what parts of your job are you having? Well, after about 9 or 10 hours on my feet, I can barely function. Like, I'm in so much pain. And I know that's not really that long. And my doctor literally stopped me in my tracks. He goes, no, that's a really long time to be standing around. Do you get like breaks or anything? I'm like, no, managers don't get breaks. Would you get to sit down? And say, we don't have chairs in our building. Like, we have 2 chairs in the entire building, and they're only allowed to be used during interviews. Other than that, like, so if I work a 12-hour shift, I am on my feet for 12 hours. There's no breaks. There's no resting. I'm not even able to like lean on a counter, really, because I have all these other things I have to do. And my boss goes, no, or my doctor goes, no, that's really unhealthy. And anybody that was put in a situation where you have to be on your feet for 9 to 10 hours at a time without any breaks should have problems. Like, your back should hurt from standing up that long. Your feet should hurt. They're not designed to do that. So yeah, the idea that, like, I couldn't work a 4-hour shift. Now, I can't run a 4-hour D&D game. No. And that's something I like to doing. But after right around the 3-hour mark, I get a panic attack and I have to stop, or I have a seizure. So yeah, the likelihood of me ever being able to, and I can only do that once a week. The likelihood of me ever being able to work again, I need to stop slouching. The likelihood of me ever being able to work a traditional job again is next to nothing. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not 100% upset about that, because if I could hold down a job, I would not want to work in a traditional field ever again. I hated it. I hated retail. I've hated every job I've ever had in my life, vehemently. So if I do ever get the ability to work again, I'm probably going to look for some kind of non-standard employment. And it's going to involve interviewing, and I'm not going to do this you trick me, I trick you bullshit anymore. Because I've been on both sides, and I know... Really? Thank you, phone. I've been on both sides, and I know that it doesn't actually give you better candidates. This idea of let's see if they're smart enough to trick me doesn't give you good candidates. It gives you swarmy, smarmy candidates that will do everything they can to trick you and take all the money that they can from your business. I've met these people. I worked with these people. I hired some of them. It's not a good interview environment. And I don't think, again, this is how auditions have worked for decades upon decades. This is the accepted way that that auditions work. Is this idea of you have to come in and you have to try and guess what they want, and you just have to hope and pray beyond all hope that your name isn't the wrong name or something like that. And I don't think that gives you better auditions. It's really effective in weeding out bad actors, because you are never, like, if I hadn't gone to school for it and talked to someone that was an active working actor, I would never know half the unwritten rules of auditioning. The things like you're not supposed to ask the casting director what they're looking for, and doing that is a pretty surefire way to ensure that you won't get the job, because it's just expected that they're not going to tell you, and you're not supposed to ask. Effectively a don't ask, don't tell kind of thing. It's the weirdest thing. And I don't think that gives you better performances. I don't think it weeds out weaker actors. I think it's just a power trip. And power trips in general don't actually help anyone. Even the person going on the power trip, it doesn't actually make them a better person. It doesn't make them feel better or anything like that. It is a negative experience for literally everyone involved. We've just kind of accepted that that's how everything works. And so if I ever do get the chance to get into acting again, I'm done with this idea of you trick me and I'll trick you and we'll see who's trickier. And this idea of I'm going to pretend I know what you want and you're going to pretend that you don't know what you want. Because it's stupid. And it's counterproductive, and I think it wastes a lot of people's time. Which probably means I'm never getting back into the workforce. Again, these are the rules, and just because you want to change them doesn't mean they will. But I'd like to think if I talk about this enough, and if I can ever get to a place where I actually can start interviewing people, if I start my own business somehow, become a director somehow, then maybe I can start changing people's minds. Because I did start seeing that in retail when I realized that the training that these companies had spent literally hundreds of millions of dollars developing was absolute horseshit and was turning out really bad employees. And I started changing things from the inside, and I started showing results. I got people to start listening, and I got people to start changing policies at the store level. I wasn't with the company long enough to get it up to corporate to make actual change. And to be perfectly honest, corporate in general is really good at the sunken cost fallacy. It's one of the reasons why those personality typing things are part of most entry-level applications. Those things are like, we're gonna give you a statement, and you have to tell us if you strongly agree, neutral, disagree, or strongly disagree. Those are personality typing tests. They're completely worthless. And the psychological community is actually very aware of that. However, the business community back in the 80s, spent like $50 or $60 million to develop these personality typing things to weed out bad employees, which they don't. They never have. But they use them 30 and 40 years later because they spent $50 million on them. So it doesn't matter that they don't work. They spent money on them, so they're going to use them. And so that would have been the problem I had in retail, trying to get them to stop using these god-awful training programs that don't work. Because they spent tens and hundreds of millions of dollars on them, and so they're going to use them, whether they work or not. But yeah, if you want to lose your next job interview, go into the job interview, sit down without pretense or anything like that, introduce yourself like you normally would, and just go, hey, what do you think Like, what are you looking for someone in this job? See what happens. Again, if you have a dumb interviewer, when you break from the agreed upon lies, your interviewer, we'll call you. But if you have someone smart, like I used to be, you sit down and go, hey, what are you looking for in this position? Or what are some of the things that you see this job really needing in order to succeed? You know, go on the offensive. Be conversational instead of, well, I'm a very good person. You can look at my resume and see all of the amazing letters that go after my name. No, go on and go, hi, I want to work for you. I think I'd be good at this job, but I need to know what you think this job is about. And I'll tell you what I think, and then we can have a conversation about it. I think that would be a significantly better interview process. I think it would be significantly better. And I've had interviews like that. And they do give you a much better idea about the person you're about to hire. They're very, very effective in finding not quote unquote good or bad employees, but people that will gel with your staff, which is significantly more important than being good or bad at your job. Most jobs, again, I was a trainer. The trainer in my name is not just something fun that I came up with. I was a trainer. That's what I did. I do not think I've ever worked a job that I could not train a moron to do it with enough time, as long as the moron was willing to put the work into learning it. There are certain things like, again, if you're a manager, you need to be able to memorize numbers. You have to. There's no way around it. If you cannot memorize things, you cannot memorize numbers, you're probably not going to make it as a manager, because there's just certain things that you have to learn. But beyond certain things like that, like, you know, if you're a pilot, you have to be able to see. Other than things like that, just about anyone can do any job as long as they have a good trainer. And so this idea that the person has to already be able to do their job perfectly before they apply for it is really dumb. And yeah, again, it's a really great way to get low experience workers to never be able to get a job. But it doesn't actually help. Some of the best workers I ever had were people that had no experience. And I've had amazing experiences with people that had, from acting perspective, you know, I've had amazing experiences with people that have no acting experience whatsoever. They just, for this particular role, it fit them really, really well. So yeah. Anyway, that was a little story I wanted to tell and just talk about kind of the weird idea that in the adult world you kind of constantly have to prove that you're worth existing, and how stupid an idea that is. Whether or not you guys think that's cool or not, that's fine. But I needed to do something to get on camera again, because I really was having massive problems just turning the camera on. So hopefully this means that by next week we're back to normal. Anyway, that's all for me today. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.